You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 8th part of What If Deku and Hero Academia Joins Super Sentai. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. After what seemed to be an instant battle, the heroes and soldiers came out victorious with all the civilians in the area evacuated to safety thanks to the brave efforts of Gang Orca's sidekicks and Japan's law enforcement. It was hard-fought battle with some losses on the heroes and soldiers' side. Slowly but surely, the buglers' numbers began decreasing. The Vaglis on the street was slowly replaced with piles of robot body parts lying on the ground, and before long, all that was left were the Go-Busters, Himiko, pro-heroes, soldiers, and SWAT team members. The Go-Busters and Himiko were seen leaning against or sitting atop a military jeep and resting bit, after all the fighting they were doing today, with the 4 teens having water bottles in their hands as they now were able to get the chance to talk and explain everything that happened to them while the attack was going on. I see, so that's how you became the Yellow Buster. Midoriya said after hearing how Ren and Melissa met with her becoming a Go-Buster. But I never would have imagined that the daughter of their famous David Shield agrees to be a Go-Buster. He said with excitement in his voice. Well, being a hero was always a dream of mine, Melissa said with a slight blush on her face while looking down, as she took a bite from her candy bar. But since I was born quirkless, I always thought it was nothing more than a pope dream. That is until I met Ren and he gave me the push I needed in order to go through with my goal. Yeah, I understand that feeling all too well, Midoriya said with a whisper before taking a drink from his water bottle. I never would have gotten this far on my own without his support. I think you both are giving me too much credit for something that isn't even a big deal. Ren said to them in a modest tone. You had the ability to become heroes on your own. All I did was give you both a little push. He said before drinking from his bottle. But you also helped me too. Himiko shouted before standing up, as the attention was now drawn to her. I didn't like the pro-heroes until you showed up and changed everyone's way of thinking. She said to him. Yeah, and I'm truly sorry that you lived such a troubled life, Ren said to her with a frown, as they remembered the painful story Himiko told them about her life before running away from her former home. For what's it worth, we don't see you as a villain or monster. Melissa then gave the girl a comforting hug. The ones at fault are you stupid parents. They should give you the help you need instead of forcing you to act normal and ignoring your suffering. She spoke with a tone of anger. And once we take care of things here in the city, we're going to make your dumbass parents pay for what they did to you, Midoriya said in a serious matter. Himiko couldn't help but feel happy for what the Go-Busters were doing for her, as no one in the girl's life had even tried to help her because they thought her power was villainous and not normal. The blonde-haired girl teared up a bit before hugging the other blonde girl with a happy smile on her face. You guys are the best friends a person could ask for. Himiko said with happiness before letting go of the American girl and wiping the tears from her face. Hey, we outcasts have to look out for one another, Melissa said to her with a smile. Whether you're quirkless or have a villainous power, no one deserves to spend their lives alone. You're right about that, Midoriya said with a small smile as he was glad to finally have real friends in his life. Hey, run! Nick yelled out while running towards the 4 teens. Look, Nick's back. Ren said as he finished the last of the water in his bottle, before standing up along with the others as the buddy Royd stopped in front of the group. So what you got to report for us, Nick? Gang Orca and the other heroes are taking care of evacuating any civilians to a nearby shelter, and those two girls with frog quirks are with them as well, Nick explained to them. Oh, that's good to hear, Midoriya said as he was happy to hear that the two sisters were already evacuating with the heroes. What about the casualties? Melissa asked him. This made Nick go silent for a moment, glanced downward a bit before speaking again. A lot of injured and a few deaths, Nick explained in a grim tone, which made the four teens cringe a bit as they took the news with negative responses about some people dying from the attack. The heroes say things would have been so much worse if we hadn't showed up to help when we did. At least you managed to prevent more people from getting killed by the Vagless. He said, trying to lift their moods. Yeah, you're right, Ren said with a serious matter before looking at the others. We can't save everyone. That's one of the things we'll have to deal with if we want to become a tokusatsu hero. He told them. Midoriya was then reminded of the heroes of the other worlds and their histories. He didn't like it but knew he had to accept it if he wanted to be a real hero like them. Melissa and Himiko also had similar thoughts as Midoriya, but nevertheless, the girls took what Ren said to heart as they knew the only way to avenge the fallen was to stop the Vagless from destroying the city. Now with a newfound reason for fighting, the four teenagers strengthened their resolve and began to rejoin the fight now that they were done resting. We can't sit around here any longer, Midoriya said with seriousness as his hands balled into fists of rage. The Vagless are probably taking more people's lives as well speak. And we're the only ones with a real chance of stopping them, Melissa said with her own angry tone, thinking about all the innocent lives lost today before them. We can't let them get away with this. You can count me in as well, sister, Himiko said glaring hatefully at a broken buglar on the ground. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really too cut loose on the dash. Beeping. Himiko was then immediately cut off by the Go Busters' morphin braces as they all started suddenly beeping, which took the four teenagers by surprise. Curious about the sudden beeping, Ren, Midoriya, and Melissa held up their morphin braces to check what was on it, and what they saw made 2 out of the 3 eyes widen in pure shock and terror, as the 2 male busters gasped in disbelief while Melissa was confused and curious. Oh, CRP. Nick commented in worry as he knew what this meant. Run. Is this what I think it is? Midoriya asked, gulping nervous at what he was looking at on his morphin brace. Yeah, it is. Ren replied back with a horrified expression on his face. SHT. He couldn't help but curse. Ren and Midoriya's morphin braces both displayed a digital timer that was counting down to 0 from 21 minutes and 37 seconds, which was a sign of how much longer will the Vagless Megazord appear in their world and start wreaking havoc in the city. As the 2 boys and Buddy Royd were swearing at the thought of a Megazord coming, Melissa and Himiko looked at the boys in confusion and were concerned about the scared expression on their faces. As soon as they saw this timer appear on our morphin braces, they started to freak out. Melissa thought with curiosity, as she was still new to all of this Go Busters stuff. Are you guys okay? You look like you just learned that the world going to end. Himiko asked with a frown. With what's about to come, then it might as well be the end of the world, Nick said while slightly looking away from the girls and in a voice full of concern. What does that mean? Melissa said in confusion. What Nick is trying to say is that a Megazord is on its way. Midoriya explained to them in a fearful tone. What a Megazord, and why does that sound so bad? Himiko asked as the blonde-haired girl was pretty sure she wasn't going to like the answer. A 30-foot stories giant killer robot that has the power to level this entire city in a matter of minutes, Nick said bluntly, much to both Melissa and Himiko's horror as they began to picture a giant killer robot destroying the city. Oh God! That does sound bad. Melissa screamed in terror at the thought. NOSHTIT is. Fighting these things was already bad enough. Now we have to take on a giant freaking robot. Himiko stated with a scared expression showing on her face. This is really bad. When the Megazord shows up, we won't have any menace of fighting it. Ren thought in great worry, as they would need their buster machines to even stand a chance against the Megazord. Beeping. Then out of completely nowhere, Ren's morphin brace started to beep, which got the attention of the 4 teenagers as he was receiving an incoming transmission. "Hey, what's going on with your morphin brace?" Melissa asked in curiosity. "It sounds like someone is trying to contact him," Nick said as he could tell by the beeping. "Really? Who?" Midoriya asked, making everyone curious to see who it was calling their friend. "Don't know, but let's find out," Ren said in an unsure tone and raised his morphin brace near his mouth. "Hello," he called out to whoever it was on the other side of the line. "It's good to see that you're all well after my departure," the voice on the other line said with a nonchalant tone. This made the eyes of Ren and Midoriya widen in surprise, and Nick looked flabbergasted as they immediately knew who was speaking to them from the sound of the person's voice. "No way is that you, Zero?" Ren said back in a shocked tone. "Zero?" Himiko asked with a raised brow as her gaze shifted to Melissa, who was just as confused by this as her. "Who's that?" "No clue," Melissa said as she had a lot of catching to with the others. "Yes, it's me," Zero said with a pleasant tone. "And it's good to see that managed to find a person to fill the role of the Yellow Buster." "Zero, we need your help," Midoriya said, jumping into the conversation with an urgent tone. "A Megazord on the way and we don't have the menace to fight it. I'm well aware of the situation you're in and have already made plans to help you fight a Megazord. But before that, you all need to take care of the metaloid first," Zero told them in a serious manner. "There's a metaloid here?" Ren asked in shock at the information. "Guess that explains why a Megazord is coming." "Yes, and it's Shoveloid," the god said, informing them about the enemy. Shoveloid, the first metaloid the original Go Busters team faced. Midoriya whispers in wonder. "Metaloid?" Himiko asked out loud. "A different type of Vagless that is much stronger than the Buglars," Nick informed them about the enemy they were dealing with. "Well, that's just great," Melissa said sarcastically at the thought of a metaloid. "Anywho, you 3 need to quickly head to Tokyo Tower to eliminate the metaloid and the other Buglars there before they can take the Enetron. Once they are dealt with, then I'll send you something to take care of the Megazord. Good luck, Go Busters," Zero said to the group before ending the call. "You hear the man, people. Our next stop is Tokyo Tower," Nick said to everyone in a serious tone. "But Tokyo Tower is on the other side of the town, and Nick can only carry 2 people with you at a time. So how are we going to get there in time?" Midoriya asked as they were on a serious time limit before the Megazord showed up. Before anyone could give him an answer, the 4 teenagers and Buddy Royd heard the sound of a car horn beeping, which made them swing their heads to see who it was and saw a black limousine pulling up to closer them. "Hey Ren, doesn't that limo look familiar to you?" Nick asked his human partner as he felt like he'd seen that limo somewhere before. "Yeah, it does," Ren replied back, as the window to the limousine rolled down to reveal who it was to the group. "Red Buster. Nick. It's good to see you 2 again," Momo happily said to them, before noticing Midoriya and the others there too. "And you must be the Blue Buster," she said with interest. Oh, hey there miss," Midoriya said as he was still a bit near around girls. "The Yaoyorosis," Ren said as he didn't expect to run into them again. "You know them?" Melissa asked the boy. "Kind of. I helped them when they were being attacked by a group of Vagless before coming to the hospital," Ren said before his gaze fell back onto the family. "What are you guys even doing here?" he asked, walking up to the limousine along with the others right next to them. "Yeah, should you have been evacuated to the city by now?" Nick asked them. "We were on our way to the hospital to check up on Akiharu until we showed you taking care of those villains," Mito explained as to why they were here. "How is Akiharu, by the way?" Mona asked as she was still worried about their top butler's health. "He's fine. We managed to get him there in time," Ren said, making the rich family look relieved to hear. Thank goodness, I was so worried, Momo said in a sigh of relief. Young man, I don't know how we can ever repay you for everything you've done for our family, Mito said as he wanted to repay the young man's kindness. Like I said, it isn't a big deal, I was just doing Ren said as he just remembered that they had to eliminate the metaloid and stop the Vagless from stealing the Enetron at Tokyo Tower. Exactly, there is something you can help with right now. Huh? Really now? What is it? Mona asked with a raised eyebrow at the sudden request. Look, there's no time to explain, but we need to get to Tokyo Tower as quickly as possible, Ren said, which made Midoriya, Melissa, Nick, and Himiko understand what he was doing right. Ren, you're a genius. Nick, Melissa, and Midoriya thought in amazement. Tokyo Tower? What do you want to go there? Momo asked in curiosity and confusion as to why they needed to go there. It's like what Ren said, we don't really have time to explain everything to you right now, Himiko said in an urgent tone before Midoriya showed the Yaoyorosis the timer on his morpher. You see this right here? If we don't get to Tokyo Tower before the time hits 0, then everyone in Mizutofu is going to die. Midoriya said with a deadly serious tone. And we're the only ones in the whole city to prevent that from happening, Melissa added while matching her friend's serious expression. Please, it's a matter of life and death. Nick pleaded to them. After seeing and hearing the expression they were displaying right now, the Yaoyorozu family immediately made up their minds and knew what they had to do. Say no more, we'll get you, kids, where you need to be, Mito said with a nod before opening the limousine door. Thanks, Mr. Yaoyorozu, Ren said quickly before speaking out to the others. Okay, you three take the Yaoyorozu's limousine while Nick and I follow you from behind. He suggested to them. Right. They all said together with Midoriya, Melissa, and Himiko getting into the black limousine while Nick switches back to his motorcycle form as Ren goes on him. Well, we're heading there, can you brief us on the situation you're in? Momo suggested to the team, that she was interested in learning what they were doing. Sure, we don't mind at all. Midoriya said before closing the limousine's door. Driver, get us to Tokyo Tower and fast. Mito told the driver with a serious manner in his voice. The final battle is drawing near. Are you ready for this, Nick? Ren asked, griping the handle on his bike. You know it, Ren. Nick shouted in a pumped-up manner. The group then sets out to Tokyo Tower where all the remaining Vagless in the city are gathering together to steal the Enetron. Meanwhile, on top of the tallest building in the city, Enter was enjoying every moment of this chaos with a devilish grin on his face and his laptop in his hands. Ah, isn't this marvelous? The screams of humans filling the air as their civilizations come crashing down around them, what could be better than that? Enter said with a smile and wondered aloud as he had a hand behind his ear to get a better hearing of the chaos all around him. The Avatar General chuckled loudly as he looked at the land around him, seeing the city being reduced to rubble and burning ruins as his armies pushed forward. It was only a matter of time before the band of humanity is gone and his MSTR showed up to rule this world, and he would take great pleasure in ending their pathetic lives himself. Enter then looked at his laptop to see how much time the countdown has on it. Only 10 more minutes until the Megazords appear and the real divertisement will begin. He said with an evil grin. Mizutofu Hospital, afternoon. Masaru and Mitsuki stared at the TV screen with shocked expressions. Images of the Vagless destroying the city, along with a number of heroes and civilians hurt, was too much for them to handle. Jesus, how can a bunch of villains cause this much destruction? Mitsuki asked with shock from what she was seeing right now. I know, so many heroes and people are getting hurt. I hope someone ends this madness soon. Masaru said in a worried tone. Sitting in a nearby bed, Bakugou just rolled his eyes as he wasn't affected by this before looking out his hospital window to see and hear the chaos outside, with the entire hospital is also noisy as people were running around helping the injured, as Bakugou was getting annoyed by all the noise. So some nobody heroes and a bunch of weak extras are getting the SHT beaten out of them by a bunch of villains? Boo, F who? Bakugou could have probably finished those villains off in a matter of seconds. They didn't look so tough to him at all. If those heroes couldn't kill those villains, then they were better off dying from their wounds. But still, this many villains running without any warning was concerning. Where did they come from and how did they manage to launch such a large-scale attack onto the city? Wait. I think I see something appreciating us from the distance. Is that a limousine and motorcycle? The newswoman said in curiosity as the camera was now pointing to an incoming black limousine and a person riding on a motorcycle was coming in fast with it stopping not too far from the news crew. No way. It can't be. They heard the newswoman replied in both a tone of shock and disbelief. Hearing this made Bakugou turn his attention back to the TV, as his eyes widened in shock to see what was on the screen. Tokyo Tower, afternoon. A few moments ago. After secretly tailing the army of Vaglis, Chitos and her assistants were now seen at Tokyo Tower as they watched Shoveloid and the Buglars entering the plaza with the freelance crew doing their best to make sure the Vaglis didn't notice them. Thanks to her assistant's quirk, Chitos was now able to make a live broadcast to the world about the threat of the Vaglis. This is Chitos Kazuki and I'm here live in Japan, near Tokyo Tower, as the unknown group of villains has launched an assault all over Muzudafu City, which resulted in the deaths of both a number of heroes and civilians, Chitos said with all cameras pointed at her and the Vaglis troops, as she made an announcement to the whole world. If you are anywhere near the area, please evacuate and find shelter now as these villains are planning something big. What their plan is, I don't have the faintest idea, but it might have something to do with what Shovel Villain said, as they are searching for something called Enet dash. The female reporter didn't get a chance to finish her sentence when something in the distance caught her attention. Wait. I think I see something appreciating us from the distance. She said pointing her finger out wider with her crew now aiming their cameras at where she was pointing at. They all looked to see two vehicles moving at high speed and coming in their direction. Is that a limousine and motorcycle? Chitos asked in confusion as to why would anyone come to such a dangerous place. But when she took a closer look at the motorcycle driver, the female reporter's eyes widened in shock as to who it was. No way. It can't be. She stammered in hushed awe. The two vehicles soon came to a crashing halt when they reached their destination. The next thing to happen was Ren taking off his helmet and getting off of Nick, while the doors to the limousine opened up to see both Midoriya and Melissa quickly exiting the vehicle before closed the doors. So this is where the Enetron is? Melissa asked while moving away from the limousine and looking up at the tower. Yeah, along with the metaloid and army of Buglars. Midoriya assumed while quickly moving over to her side. The real battle starts now, Nick said to them. But I know you'll overcome it like a team. We need to hurry. We have less than a few minutes left until the Megazord shows up and all hell breaks loose. Ren said while getting off of Nick and moving over to his teammate's side before addressing the Yaoyorosis and Himiko. You guys need to get as far from this place as you can. When the Megazord arrives, nowhere in this city will be safe, he warned them of the approaching threat, as the limousine's windows rolled down. Right, we'll be sure to get away before that happens, Mito said to the Go-Busters. Good luck, everyone, and stay safe, Momo said, wishing them luck. Give those things a good butt kicking for us. Himiko encouraged them. We've done all we can for you. So we'll leave the rest to you kids. Mona said to the children, as her attention now fell onto the limo driver. Thomas, get us out of here quickly. Yes sir, Miss Yaoyorozu, Thomas said as he began to drive away from the area while leaving the three Go-Busters and Nick there alone to face the Vaglis. Nick changed to his human form and addressed the team. This is it everyone. The moment of truth. Yeah, it's almost nerve-wracking, to say the least, Melissa said with a bit uneasy in her voice at what they were about to face. But that's why we're here. To be this World Super Sentai team. Midoriya said, feeling the weight of responsibility of holding the Super Sentai name. Come on, Go Busters. We have a planet to protect. Ren said to them before turning to his buddy Royd. Thanks for the ride, Nick. But you need to leave too before things turn ugly. He said, getting a salute from the buddy Royd. Okay. Good luck, Go Busters. Nick said before running off somewhere to watch the battle in a different location. The three Go Busters exchanged quick serious glances at one another as they readied themselves for battle and then ran off together in the same direction as the Vaglas were heading. Chitos was watching the banter with shock and joy as if it was a gift from the heavens. It's the Go Busters. And is that? Her eyes were now glued to the young woman dressed in a similar outfit that the male Go Busters were wearing. That's Melissa Shield, daughter of the famous inventor David Shield. What is she doing here and with the Go Busters? Chitos then quickly turned her head to one of her assistants. Please tell me you're getting this. She asked giddiness of a schoolgirl. Yes ma'am, she said with her hand camera. I haven't stopped recording. Excellent, now let's follow them, Chitos said, beginning to hum with excitement, as she and her team followed behind the Sentai team. Chitos grinned manically, thinking that the entire world was going to watch and listening to everything the Go Busters and Vaglas were doing. The entire planet would watch this glorious day. It would be a day in history that everyone would be talking about it for ages. Musudafu Hospital, afternoon. What the hell is DKU doing there? Bakugou shouted at the top of his voice as he stood up from his bed, and he watches Deku, the vigilante, and some blonde foreigner running towards where those villains were heading. Masaru and Mitsuki were too stunned in shock to make a comment as they saw Izuku running ahead first into danger and started to worry for his safety. Night Eye Agency, afternoon. Mirai Sasaki's tired eyes scanned the live broadcast on his phone for the umpteenth time. Things were not looking good over in Musudafu, as the whole city is now a battlefield, with a new group of villains annihilating everything in their path, and a number of pro-heroes and soldiers had already been killed, and who reports of All Might fighting those villains, which almost made him smile, but could only worry as his former partner can only maintain his enhanced state for 3 hours a day due to the injury he received 5 years ago against All for One. Give me a report and full disclosure about what's happening in Musudafu. Sir Night Eye said to his sidekicks, Bubble Girl and Centipeder, calmly despite what he was feeling at the moment. Shelters in various parts of Musudafu city have now arisen and are evacuating civilians. The self-defense force personnel are already on standby and currently engaging the villains along with the pros and police officers, about 70% rating of success. Bubble Girl explained in a grim manner while looking at the news report on her table. Any confirmed casualties? Sir Night Eye asks again, narrowing his eyes. Estimated so far to be about 100, maybe more than that considering how bad things are down there, sir. Centipeder replied gravely, as he was looking at the reports from authorities of civilians getting killed by the Vaglas on his own table. Sir Night Eye felt his throat going dry and sweat trailing down his brow from the reports he gotten from his sidekicks, as he gazes back at his phone and continue to see the carnage on the news. Never before has he seen a villain attack on this grand scale and wonder where they come from and what was their objective in attacking the city. Meanwhile, as Bubble Girl continued to look through her table on the latest news reports about the Vaglas attack, the woman gasped in shock and shake nervously from the newest report on the news, as this didn't go unnoticed by the people in the room. Bubble Girl. What is it? Sir Night Eye cocked a brow, wondering why the young female hero looked so freaked out. "Yes, sir. Why, you might want to take a look at this," the blue-skinned woman said while flipping her table to show her boss and Centipeder what was on the screen. Sir Night Eye blinked, slowly taking it and examining the back to see who was on the news broadcast. "The Go Busters," Sir Night Eye muttered, with his eyes widening like an owl. Bubble Girl and Centipeder was also sharing the same general expression as their boss from seeing the vigilante team. "Impossible, they're going to take on those villains." He stood up from chair to what he was seeing on the news. Nabu Middle School, afternoon. The students of Nabu Middle School, looking out from their windows, would see the rising smoke that indicated the chaos that was happening in the downtown areas. The television screens depicting the news were showing signs of the furious battle between the heroes and Vaglis. "What the hell is going on out there?" Shinso mumbled in fear at the horrifying imaging he and his classmates were seeing on the news. Currently, the entire school is in chaos with the students and teachers panicking at how badly things were getting as Shinso glances over to his classmates and could clearly see the looks of fear on their faces. Which was understandable considering that a bunch of villains were trashing their city easier despite the heroes present there to stop them. However, when all hope seemed to be lost, Shinso and pretty much the whole school gasped in shock to see who just made a surprise appearance on the news broadcast. "Jigo Busters." Shinso muttered in shock to see the vigilantes on the news again. Shiketsu High School, afternoon. Meanwhile, somewhere else in another city, all the students and teachers of Shiketsu High School were watching the live broadcast of the Valgas attack in their school's auditorium. Everyone there was in great concern as to what was happening Mizutofu, as the school faculty were doing their best to calm down their students. However, there was a certain group of first-year students talking amongst themselves about this crisis erupting in Mizutofu. One of them is a boy covered entirely by light brown hair, with no distinct features besides his eyes, which only show up occasionally. His name is Nagamasa Mora, also known as Chuyi. Another one is a young man of fairly average height with thin, slanted eyes with tiny black pupils, and a straight purple fringe, parted on his right so it covers his left eye. Around the back of his head, his hair is fluffier, sticking out in small tufts. His name is Seiji Shishikura, also known as Shishicross. The last one is a young woman of average height with straight, fawn-colored hair that reaches just below her shoulders and large, dark brown eyes. She has noticeably plump and glossy lips as well as a quite curvaceous figure. Her name is Kami Atsushimi, also known as Iliso Kami. "Man, it's so getting bad out there," Kami said with a frown at the mass destruction that they were witnessing on the news. "Yes, it certainly is," Seiji said as he didn't like the idea of this many villains running around and tearing apart the city as they pleased. "I only wish that we were out there lending our support in this crisis. I know you want to help, but let's leave this one to the pros. We're only first-year students after all," Nagamasa suggested to them. "Wait. I think I see something appreciating us from the distance. Is that a limousine and motorcycle? No way. It can't be." The newswoman replied with a shocked tone. The three first-year students turn their heads back to the newswoman on the screen, and then their eyes along with everyone else's in the auditorium eyes widened in pure shock and disbelief to see the Go Busters on the news again. "Holy moly, aren't those the dash?" Kami said with a jaw-hanging opening from the surprise. "Go Busters," Seiji responded with his eyes narrowed at the vigilante team. "What are they doing there?" he said with distaste. "I dunno, but it looks like they're trying to stop those villains," Nagamasa said, making the two from his class look at him in shock. CI Academy, afternoon. Somewhere else in another city where a hero school is at, the all-girls school CI Academy students and teachers were picked into their school's gymnasium while watching the live broadcast attack on Mizutofu in horror. Most of the girls there were panicking or worried to see so much death and destruction by a group of villains even the pro-heroes were having a hard time dealing with, as the school faculty were doing their best to calm down their students. But there was one first-year girl there who wasn't panicking like the rest of the student body, as she was sitting with her classmates. She is a rather pale girl of reasonable height, with thin, somewhat cat-like eyes, with thick upper eyelashes, a couple of longer and more pronounced ones poking out to each far side, their irises a bluish lilac color. Her hair is straight and reaches down to her waist, with two ear-length clumps and a neat fringe framing her face in a Heim cut. Its color is somewhere between baby blue, lavender, and pale gray. Her name is Psycho Intelli. Where did they all come from and how could they launch such a large-scale attack on the city, despite all of those pros there? Saiko thought deeply about this matter, as she to focus to realize what was happening around her at the time. No way. Is that the Go Busters? A random girl in the gymnasium shouted in shock, as Saiko's focus was broken, and looked back at the live broadcast. The entire CI Academy student population was stunned to see the two Go Busters and a blonde-haired girl wearing the same clothes as them, arriving on vehicles and rushing toward an army of Valgas. It's them. Saiko muttered as a similar of hope was born in the girls' and everyone else's chests. Ketsubutsu Academy, afternoon. Somewhere else located in Mizutofu, the heroes are getting destroyed by the Valgas attack was Ketsubutsu Academy High School, another hero school. Inside one of the classrooms, the students and their homeroom teacher were watching the attack on all of Mizutofu, with the school is now on full lockdown in order to protect their students from danger. The teacher is a young woman of a strong athletic build with noticeably muscular arms. She has sea-green hair that reaches just past her shoulders, and short fringe with splayed ends which is usually obscured by her orange bandana. She has dark green eyes with bright pupils, but by far her most prominent feature is her unwavering joyous smile. Her hero costume consists of a sleeveless navy blue shirt with a high collar that's buttoned up all the way to her chin, puffed shorts with a green and orange pinstripe design and a corset adorned with yellow smiley face pins, dipping down in a shallow U in the center. Below this, she wears a white V-shaped belt, and on her hands she has padded yellow gloves with golden plates over her knuckles and lower fingers, which extend in orange striped tubes down her lower arms, with thick metal cylinders acting as wrist guards over the top. Her name is Emi Fukukado, also known as Smile Hero, Ms. Joke. He is a tall, muscular young man with shaggy, unruly hair which is such a dark brown that it's almost black, sticking up in all directions around his head. His eyes are a loose diamond shape, warm brown in color, his bangs hanging low above them, and he usually has a smile on, whether it be nice or sinister. His name is Yoshindo, also known as Grand. She is a pale, curvaceous girl of a reasonably muscular build with large, pointed teeth that are usually worn in a smile. She has wide, rectangular eyes with thick upper eyelashes and pronounced lower ones, their irises notably small, blue in color. Her hair is short, ash blonde, and is styled with two longer clumps spiking outwards on either side of her head which somewhat resemble the fins of a fish, and a single, chin-length bang on her right. Further contributing to her aquatic motif are her two earrings, which are turquoise and shaped like fish. They hang vertically from each ear, so that the tails point down. Her name is Tatami Nakagame, also known as Turtleneck. He is a young man with blue, rough and rock-like, almost as if it were a carapace. He has no visible hair, nose or ears, but he has a wide jagged mouth with a protruding spike sticking upwards on either side of his face, and blue eyes, rimmed with what appears to be thick eyelashes of the same color. His neck seems to be made up of multiple different rings stacked on top of each other, which are a slightly darker blue than his skin. Shiki Makabe, also known as Mr. Smith. He is a young man with small, black, oval-shaped eyes, a notably small mouth, and a round nose. He has wavy, shoulder-length black hair which is pushed back on his forehead before it comes down to frame his face. Itajiro Totiki, also known as Boomerang Man. Okay everyone, please keep calm and we'll start evacuation in an orderly fashion. Ms. Joke announced to her class, as they had worried looks on their faces. Ms. Joke, should you be out there helping deal with this crisis? Shiki asked his homeroom teacher. Yeah, it sounds like they need your help out there, Tatami added in agreement. I understand your concerns, but my number one priority is your kid's safety. Ms. Joke said with a serious smile. Besides, there are plenty of pros out there already taking care of those villains. You sure, because what I'm seeing isn't very reassuring, Teach, Shindo said, looking at how the heroes are getting destroyed by the Valgas. The heroes look like they need all the help they can get out there. He stated with Itajiro nodding in agreement. Look kids, Ms. Joke said before something on the TV cut her off. She along with her whole class looked to see, which made all of their eyes go wide. "What in the world? Is that the Go Busters?" she said, gasping at the sight of the vigilantes on the news. Nabu Island/Shimano resident, afternoon. Meanwhile, on an isolated and peaceful small island that was located in southern Japan, two siblings were watching the broadcast of the Valgas attacking Japan. One is a small girl with dark brown eyes, straight brown hair styled into pigtails with dark pink bubble-shaped bands, and a small patch of freckles in the middle of her face. She wears a pink dress with dark pink overall straps and buttons over a black tank top, and white sandals with a pink stripe wrapping around the sole, and dark pink flower decorations at the sides. On her left wrist is a bracelet with a floral charm, identical to the one her brother wears. She also wears a large sun hat with a dark pink scarf and bow at the crown and a light pink stripe at the rim. Her name is Mihoru Shimano. The other is a young boy with brown eyes, curly, light brown hair, and a small patch of freckles in the middle of his face. He wears a pair of blue overalls with dark blue straps over a white t-shirt, accompanied by light blue sandals. He also carries a small, yellow messenger bag that has a pin of the pro hero Edge Shot's face fastened onto the strap. Additionally, he sports a bracelet with a floral charm on his left arm like his sister, along with a large sun hat which has a blue band on the crown and a light blue stripe on the rim. His name is Katsuma Shimano. The two Shimano siblings were beyond terrified with Mihoru holding on to Katsuma and doing everything she could to comfort her little brother, after seeing all the death and destruction on the television. When they thought all hope was lost, a group of certain individuals showed up that made their mouths hang open in shock and joy. "It's the Go Busters, Mihoru!" Katsuma shouted with joy, as his sister Mihoru was too stunned to speak. Europe, ASEAN/Seoul resident, afternoon. Meanwhile, in a different country, a group of siblings was sitting in their living room and watching a live broadcast of what was going on in Japan, much to their horror. The first is a young man with spiky brown hair that he has tied back, along with gray eyes and sun-kissed skin. He wears a red bandana along with a pair of sunglasses on his head, as well as a pale blue button-up shirt with a number of patches and a tan beige jacket with an orange flower sticking out from the left chest pocket. He wears a pair of thick, gray gloves and a blue and red striped tie. He also wears a pair of black pants that stop just above his ankles with patches on the knees, as well as a pair of dark brown shoes with a gray cloth wrapped around each of them. His name is Rody Soul. The second is a small young girl with brown, flat noodle-looking hair kept in a high-side ponytail that is held together with a flower hair tie, along with a pair of gray eyes. She wears a sundress that has two flowers in the front, a smaller one towards the top and a larger one towards the bottom, with a pair of dark leggings that end just above the knee and a pair of slip-on sneakers. Her name is Lala Soul. The last one is a small young boy with flat, brown hair and gray eyes. He wears a cadet blue and white shirt that is rather raggedy, with the left sleeve and right side of the waist patched together. His name is Roro Soul. Holy, CRP, Rody muttered lowly under his breath so his younger siblings didn't hear him curse at what he was seeing, the mayhem going on in Japan right now. That looks really bad, Roro commented while unsure how much he felt at the moment. Do you think the heroes will win? Lala asked in a scared tone with tears forming in her eyes, but hung on to hope there was someone to stop this madness. Roro comforted her terrified sister by handing Lala's hand, as Rody frowned a bit to see her scared and was about to say something to her until Chitosa's voice drowned the siblings back to the TV screen. What they saw made Roro and Lala gasp in surprise, and Rody's mouth hung open in shock. The Go Busters? Rody exclaimed with wide eyes to see the #1 vigilante team in Japan making an appearance. Humorize ASEAN branch headquarters, afternoon. Meanwhile, in a different location of ASEAN, the global cult known as Humorize was watching a live broadcast of the Valgas assault in Japan. Every member there was awestruck at how the Valgas were killing every hero and civilian in sight without much difficulty. That also includes a few of the high-ranking members of the Humorize who took great interest in this group of unknown villains. The first is a tall and slim man with luminescent light blue skin, a shaved head of dark blue hair, a goatee mustache, and arrow-shaped earrings. He wears a red robe, a golden belt, and two glove-like prostheses accompanied with fingertips. His pants are also gray and he wears combat boots. His clothes have small discs in which he contains the energy of his quirk. His villain costume is a long white cloak with dark red parts inside. His name is FANFICTION, the leader of the global cult Samurais. The second is an athletically built woman with short mint green hair and sharp eyes of the same color. She wears a gray sleeveless combat suit, though hers has a mask obscuring the lower part of her face. Strapped to her back is a white quiver carrying the ammo for her bow. Accompany her suit are bulky, cream-colored boots, and a green hooded cape with a red arrow fletching pinned to the left side of the hood. On her right hand is a burgundy glove, and on her left, the index finger is wrapped in the same material. Her name is Barrows, a member of the global cult Samurais. The third is a muscular hulking man with bleach white skin, black markings on his face and forearms, and a single row of brown spikes running down his spine. He has a relatively small head, with beady orange-yellow eyes and a wide set of teeth. On Leviathan's fingers and toes are spiraling red appendages. There is also a set of tubes, with the same appearance stemming from his back and connecting to his head. He wears torn black plants with a brown belt. His name is Leviathan, a member of the global cult Samurais. The fourth is a somewhat slim man with long hair, red skin, sunken eyes and a thin mustache. He also has several traits that resemble a Japanese oni, including an underbite with two sharp teeth poking out from his lower jaw, a pointed horn protruding from the middle of his forehead that curves upwards and sharp fingernails. His name is Rogan, a member of the global cult Samurais. The fifth and sixth are men of average build and fair skin with bowl-cut indigo hair, yellow reptilian eyes with dark purple markings surrounding them, and a set of large fangs. Each of them wears a simple red and white tunic with gray, presumably snake skin, boots. Their names are Aina and Dio, a villain duo comprised of twin brothers who call themselves the Serpenters and members of the global cult Samurais. The last one is a tall man with slicked back brown and black hair, an extremely wide mouth, and large bulbous elbows. He wears a gray combat suit, though his version has sleeves going to his upper arm. Accompany his suit are cream-colored boots, and pale gold-horned mask that obscures the upper half of his face. All of his fingers barring his thumbs have black iron ball on his knuckles. His name is Sidero, a member of the global cult Samurais. After watching Chitosa's broadcast, the whole cult saw Japan's #1 vigilantes on the screen and heading to fight those crimes alone. FANFICTION said with an intrigued expression at the sight of the Sentai team. This is going to be worth watching. United States of America / unknown afternoon. Elsewhere in another country, a group of villain mercenaries were watching the live broadcast of the carnage that had swallowed the streets of Muzudafu in completely surprise and awe. The first is tall, bulky man with dark red hair and yellow eyes. Dark patches of face paint cover his mouth, nose, and extend across his right eye, and there is also a scar on his left cheek. He wears a large, white coat with gray cuffs and trimmings. He also sports combat gear that his entire squad wears, including combat boots, dark pants, and a combat vest. He covers his hands with brown gloves and sports a metallic mask that covers his scars. His name is Wolfram, a villain Mercury. The second is a skinny, strange-looking man with pale yellow skin and a face shaped similar to that of a goat, possessing two small triangular ears and a flat nose consisting only of nostrils. He has thin, dark eyes that are slanted sharply inwards and visibly sharp teeth. His dark green hair is mohawk-shaped and connects around his ears along his cheekbones, and he also has a small goatee. He dresses in a black combat suit, complete with a full-face mask with a paler X-shaped design patterning it over his face. His name is Nobu, a villain Mercury, a part of Wolfram crew. The third is a middle-aged man with lightly tanned skin and a round head that appears to merge into his thick neck with little distinction. He has small, black eyes that always remain closed, set close together on his face, notably small eyebrows and a visibly hooked nose. His dark hair is very short, and is worn in a round shape on the top of his head with 2 stripes of hair, that go around the back of his head, visible below. He dresses in a black combat suit, complete with a full face mask, a paler X-shaped design patterning it over his face. His name is Daigo, a villain Mercury, a part of Wolfram crew. The last one is a middle-aged man with lightly tanned skin, thin honey brown eyes and a long face. He has shoulder-length hair of a desaturated pink-like color that flares outwards to the sides, with shorter bangs between and to the sides of his eyes. He also has curved, linear markings under his eyes and down his cheek which are a dark shade of purplish pink. He dresses in a black combat suit, complete with a full face mask, a paler X-shaped design patterning it over his face. His name is Swordkill, a villain Mercury, a part of Wolfram crew. Well, I'll be DMN. Swordkill said while looking at what was on the scene. I did not see this coming. Me neither, but you have to give mad respect for however planned this attack. Nobu said with a chuckle at the one response for. The question is who is responsible for causing this? Daigo asked the group. Whoever they are, they would make good business partners. Wolfram said with a grin as he was tempted to shake the BSTRD's hand that was responsible for this attack. Then the next thing that happens on TV screen caught the villain's mercenaries by surprise, as they saw the Go-Busters arriving on the scene and charging headfirst into the Vagless, much to the group of mercenaries' annoyance. Those DMN, brats. Wolfram said while gritting his teeth at the sight of the Go-Busters. Japan/unknown afternoon. Somewhere else in Japan, in an abandoned house in the middle of the forest and miles away from civilization. A group of villains were sitting in a dark room watching everything that was happening in Mizutofu City right now with great disbelief on all of their faces as they looked at the laptop. The first is a tall man with fair skin, thin, rectangular gray eyes, and white pupils. He also had white hair just past his shoulders, worn and swept away from his face. His most defining feature was the large black mask covering him from his chest to just above his nose, for extra pieces winding around his face and head. For darker plates cover each side of his neck, lined with dark purple, and he has what appears to be something similar to the flat muzzle of a gas mask over his mouth that's decorated with 7 gray studs, as well as a giant purple and black cylinder protruding from each of his shoulder blades. Below this, he wore a full-body suit of a similar design, with plates of black covering his entire body, leaving only his fingers exposed, and, over this, a blazer and dress pants of a pale lilac color. He also wore black boots. His name is Nine. The second appears to be a young woman with fair skin, blue eyes that slope inwards, and noticeably full, glossy lips. She also possesses straight, shiny red hair with chin-length bangs that partially obscure her right eye, the back part reaching down to her thighs while 2 front strands appear long enough to reach past her feet. She wears it tied together at the ends down her back, the 2 longer strands left to fall to her knees before looping back up behind her. She wears a pale purple blouse with frilled cuffs, the collar upturned, and a pearl string necklace of a similar color. Over this is a short, navy blue dress with a collar so low it dips down to her waist and a thick brown belt that's fastened in 3 places around her waist. She also wears dark red gloves and frilled, thigh-high socks of a purple color, a pair of black boots with knee-high protrusions worn over the top, and 2 bands of red binding them to her calves around the back. Along with this, she sports a black choker with a small red circle in the center and a black domino mask over her eyes. Her name is Karuka Hasaki, also known by her villain name Slice. The third is an animalistic-looking man with traits of different animals. While he retains a humanoid figure, he has blue fur, a wolf-like head, hands, and feet resembling an eagle's talons, and a long reptilian tail. He wears a brown trench coat over a blue dress shirt and jeans fastened with a belt and often has a cigar in his mouth. He styles his dark hair into dreadlocks. His name is Chojuro Khan, also known by his villain name Chimera. The last one is a tall, lanky man with pale orange eyes that are baggy and slant forward and straight gray hair. His most distinguishing feature is his numerous burgundy-colored bandages, which wrap around every part of his body except his hands and eyes. Over his bandages, he wears a dark gray combat vest, light gray skin-tight pants with beige knee guards, and a set of black fingerless gloves. He also wears gray dress shoes with dark detailing and a brown garter belt holding numerous pouches held up by a belt. He also carries a small sword on his left shoulder. His name is Hoyo Makihara, also known by his villain name Mummy. An army of heroes and soldiers was being decimated by a group of new villains. The attack just came out of nowhere and Vaglis was destroying everything in their path from heroes, soldiers, civilians, and the entire city. This is happening right now, is it? Mummy asked as he couldn't believe this was happening, as the others in the room general expressed the same thoughts as him. "'Cause this is bullshit right now. F me." Chimera swore under his breath, as the tobacco cigarette from his mouth fell to the ground. "I never imagined anyone but you doing something like this, Nine," he said to the leader of their group who hadn't once taken his eyes off the TV since the attack began. Nine for his part remained silent as he was so fixated on what he was seeing right now, that he didn't make a single comment the entire time until his allies. Not to mention after what that one thing did to Endeavor, Slice added as they watched the number 2 hero of Japan get sent flying by that metaloid earlier. "I'm not sure even a group of villains are even capable of killing this many heroes." She folded her arms as she swallowed. "So who are they and where did they come from?" Mummy asked the others who didn't have any answers. "Whoever they are and where they came from doesn't matter," Nine finally spoke but in a calm tone, as every one of the crew members looked at him. "All that matters is that they are strong and people like that are needed in my new world," he said as he watches every detail of this attack intently, as this new group interested him. "No way. It can't be." The female reporter shouted, drawed the 3 criminals back to the television and made all of them go wide-eyed to see who it was on the screen. "Hey, isn't that Dash?" Mummy said, pointing at the television. "Those vigilantes that just recently appeared," Chimera said with narrowed eyes. "The Go Busters." Slice stuffed in utter disgust at the sight of the Sentai team. Nine gave the Sentai team a cold glare on the screen as they were the type of people not needed in his new world. Meta Liberation Army Headquarters, afternoon. In Daika City, the whole city population comprising of the Meta Liberation Army members, were watching in shock to see the Vaglis invasions on Mizutofu City and the Go Busters making their appearance to stop the killer robots from destroying everything. Rikiya and the other top MLA members were there watching the worldwide broadcast in their meeting room. "Well now," Rikiya said with a grin to see the Sentai team again. "What are you going to show us now, Go Busters?" he said, leaning forward in his seat in anticipation. "League of Villains Hideout, afternoon. What the hell are they doing there?" Tamura demanded to know as he and Kurojiri watched those DMN Go Busters rushing in to fight against the Valgas. "I don't like where this is going," Kurojiri muttered out loud in concern for this new unexpected turn of events. "Doesn't matter, because those stupid heroes have finally met their match," Tamura said in a glee tone, as he was looking forward to those new players crushing those vigilantes to dust. Shai Hasaikai Resident Underground, afternoon. Back in the Yakuza hideout, everything was silent as all the members of the Shai Hasaikai were staring at the TV in total shock at what they witnessing going on in the city. "This is unreal," Kurono commented in a blank tone. "No SHT, it is Kurono," Mimic said in a cruel tone. "Who in their right mind is crazy enough to do something like this?" he asked out loud. "Another organization perhaps?" Nemoto wondered. "Because this doesn't seem like just a random attack on the city. It looks planned out. We should count ourselves luck that all of this CRP is happening in Mizutofu right now instead of here," a bald man with a mask over his mouth said with his arms crossed. He is a tall, muscular man with shadowed eyes and his head shaven to use his quirk more efficiently. He wears a dark dress shirt, the top few buttons left undone, and plain pants, along with a pair of black dress shoes. His choice of a mask is a simple medical mask that he wears over his mouth, unlike the signature beak-like mask worn by the rest of the 8 bullets. His name is Yuhojo. Well, whoever they are, they're doing us a big favor in getting rid of those stupid heroes. A tall, lean young man chucked at the sight of the pro-heroes. He is a tall, lean young man with light, almond-shaped eyes, their irises visibly small, with prominent dark circles around them. His hair is chin-length and bright golden blonde color, worn parted to his left to obscure his right eye. He has a wide mouth with mainly straight teeth and thin eyebrows that are usually pointed upwards. These, and the notable wideness of his eyes, give him a permanently crazed look. The man also wearing a dark green dress shirt with a pink tie as well as dark pants and a beak-shaped plague mask that's worn by all of the 8 bullets. His name is Toya Setsuno. That's what they get for calling us human garbage, when they're getting themselves killed by these new guys, a slim man with circular eyes said with a gin. He is a slim man with circular eyes, dark eye bags, and short, unruly black hair. He also has a notably large mouth, possibly due to the nature of his quirk and straight teeth. He wears a ragged burlap sack mask that covers his entire head and is held by a rope knot around his neck. The mask has 2 openings from where his eyes are visible and a stitched smile. He also wears a purple dress shirt and gray pants. His name is Soromitsu Tabe. Well, whatever it is, I don't care. I just want to fight those guys. A large man with a battle-happy grin on his face. He is a large man wearing a hidden beneath the plague mask given to him by the Shai Hasaikai, and he dons a tattered t-shirt and dark pants covered by a light blue tunic and decorated with 2 belts. He also sports his signature gloves, which cover his hands and wrists with several leather straps and his knuckles with metal. His name is Kendo Rappa, also known as the Rapper. Calm yourself, Rapper. The last thing we want you to do is to go out there and cause trouble that might lead back to us. Another man with spiky pale hair said to quell his partner's battle-hungry nature. He is a slim man with short, spiky hair of a pale color. He has straight, dark eyebrows and thin eyes, their irises and pupils visibly light, but he is usually seen with his eyes closed. He wears a traditional dark-colored yukata with a pair of geta on his feet, a long white piece of cloth acting as a belt around his waist. As with the other members of the Shai Hasaikai, he wears a plague mask, his being a plain brown one worn strapped to his face with 3 belts, one down his forehead and one on each side of his face that also covers his ears, like mufflers. His name is Hikiji Tengai. Aw, you're no fun at all, Tengai. Rapper complained with Tengai ignoring his whining. Things probably would be even better if you knew who was still here with us instead of that vigilante. A very skinny man said in a slightly drunken manner. He is a very skinny and bony but muscular man with long, greasy black hair, reaching just below his shoulders, circular and rather deep-set eyes, and notably straight teeth. Like all members of Shai Hasaikai, he wears a mask, his one being plain and having drains fitted into the eye holes so that the alcohol he consumes can drip through. Aside from that, the man wears nothing but a furry vest and dark pants with black shoes. His name is Didoro Sakaki. When the boss comes up with a plan, then we'll get the girl back and make that brat pay for screwing with our business. A very large said with his arms folded together. The man is a large, tall, and very muscular man. He wears a black tank top with a standby symbol, probably referring to his quirk. On his back, it's possible to see a metallic seat that he uses to carry other Shai Hasaikai members. He also wears olive drab jeans with an armor-looking belt. He wears a pair of blue socks and orange sneakers as well. He also wears massive gauntlets and knuckle dusters on his fists. Like every other Shai Hasaikai member, the man wears a plague mask. In his case, it is black, with red lines, white eyes, and a golden detail around the neck. It also covers his whole head. His name is Rikiya Katsukame. While the 8 bullets were talking among themselves, Chisaki remained quiet, a natural but calculated expression as he glued to the screen. Chisaki huffs after watching the vagueless massive chaos on Mizutofu. Whoever this new group goal is, they are starting to rise up the totem pole compared to the rest of us in the underworld. He thought after what he was watching on the news with observant eyes. All the more reason to remove them from the equation. He proclaims. Then a new development happened on TV, that made every one of the Yakuza villains go silent, with Chisaki's eyes widening in shock and frustration to see who it was on the news. Go Busters! Chisaki whispers in a cold tone, as his gaze focuses back on the TV. Tabita resident, afternoon. At the apartment building Gentle Criminal and La Brava, the duo were watching the vagueless attack in their living room, much to both of the two shock and terror. As they continued to watch, the broadcast then changed to something that made both of them look shocked to see who was on it. It's them again. La Brava said, pointing at the television screen. The Go Busters. Gentle Criminal muttered with him swallowing a lamp down his throat. Tartarus Prison, afternoon. At the maximum security prison of Tartarus, Kana was watching the live broadcast of the vagueless attack on her phone and intently observing the news report. She never took her eyes off the phone as an obnoxious male reporter was losing his SHT right in front of the camera as police, military, and heroes were running around all over the place. The footage switches multiple times to show all of Mizutofu, thin trails of smoke and fire coming from it along with the occasional popping of gunfire and explosions. Changing the video to another news report, Kana was now watching Chitosa's news broadcast that showed Shoveloid and an army of Buglars marching their way through the destroyed city streets, and attacking several pro-heroes and soldiers without much trouble as they continued their advancement toward Tokyo Tower. Her time as the HPSC agent had taught the former hero many things, and Kana had a gut instinct telling her that these villains were not normal like your typical criminals. There was something very dangerous about this group. Considering that the shovel villain who was leading the group, shockingly enough, was powerful enough to one-shot the flame hero himself. Couldn't have happened to a nicer douchebag. As soon as Kana was going to SWCH off to another news broadcast, a motorcycle and black limousine suddenly showed up near the camera screen. Then it shows a familiar group of vigilantes making their appearance and making their way to confront the villains, which puts the blue and pink two-tone hair woman in a good mood at the sight of seeing them again in action. Huh. Now this just got interesting, Kana said with a smile as she brushed aside her locks of hair. Hope you kids live through this. She stated. Somewhere else in a separate secret location, we're seated in a very dark room. A man was sitting there in a very dark room, which was only lit by multiple monitors displaying several different infographics and data. Connected to the monitors were multiple large processors to help download and analyze the data displayed on the screens. The man was dressed in a black suit, but this man was in grave condition. A single look at his face would be enough to frighten anyone who saw it, for almost all of the features, eyes, nose, ears, hair, and everything except the mouth was replaced with scar tissue. This was the symbol of evil, all for one. Leaning back in his chair with the side of his face resting against his bald hand, the dreaded leader of the League of Villains watched the news with great interest and a tiny grin on his face. This was certainly an unexpected outcome. Not once did he predict that a villain attack would escalate to such a level. The destruction, the bloodshed, the panic that was brought about from the transmission and the explosion, all of it caused by this group of unknown villains. Anyone who can cause this much chaos has my complete respect. All for one thought while looking around in amusement and intrigue at how everyone was running around like headless chickens, finding amusement that the heroes was unable to do anything about the chaos that's been unleashed as they were mercilessly being slaughtered by the Valgas. It made him wonder if it'd be possible to make an alliance with this unknown new group of villains, knowing that would be a great asset for his plans for the future. Then something unexpected on the news happened that made all for one pause for a moment. He saw the Go-Busters pulling up next to the news crew and ran straight toward where the army of Valgas was heading and looked like they were going to battle them all. But what also caught his attention the most was the female who was with them recognized that it was the daughter of Professor David Shield and wondered what she was doing there with vigilantes. All for One had a particular disdain for those who participated in vigilantism. Since they weren't constrained by the law, they could freely do whatever they wanted and engage villains without any consequence. The problem was that sometimes they would unknowingly interfere in his machinations and made sure to have his agents eliminate them if necessary. But then there was the Go-Busters. Dispatching being a group of vigilantes, there was something about them that even intrigued All for One, especially the Red Buster after the incident he caused yesterday. He didn't need to capture them or even speak to them to know. He could see that this Sentai team was special, and whatever secrets they had he wanted them all for himself because that's All for One desires. He made himself a mental note to have the doctor look more into the Go-Busters and Valgas when he got the chance. But that could be saved for later, he had to focus on the matter at hand. Two outside elements had just appeared in the game and could possibly upend his future plans. Luckily, All for One always had a backup plan in case things ever went sour. He picked up the cell phone from his desk and was about to contact one of his followers when he noticed that he had just received a text from the doctor himself. "Garaki, my lord. What should we do now that the heroes are busy dealing with these invades? All for One, watch and observe for now. We'll make our more when the time is right. Until then, don't make any rash decisions." "Garaki, understood, my lord. I'll await your command when you need my service once more." All for One placed his phone back down on his desk before returning his gaze back to the monitor to see what would take place next. "Okay, Go-Busters, show me what you can do," the symbol of evil said as he was looking forward to what will happen next. Hero Public Safety Commission Conference Room, afternoon. Meanwhile, somewhere, the headquarters of the HPSC was thrown into complete disarray at the sudden attack by the Valgas on the city, as they called in every available hero to deal with this crisis. But to no luck, as every hero sent in was easily overpowered by the enemy, with JSDF now involved to help the heroes fight against this new threat on their country. Sayaka was sitting in the small private room again, watching the live broadcast with her arms folded as she breathed through her nose in abject horror. She mentally recapped how this entire situation came to this ghastly outcome. Mera was there next to Sayaka, looking at the giant screen spanning the length of the room, wearing the same expression as his boss, and felt his throat tighten, as he could see every single person in the room scrambling around like headless chickens at how they were trying to get things under control. How can this be happening right now? Sayaka thought to herself while burying her face in her hands as she heard the sounds of the person in the room screaming and the news reporter's broadcast. The MDM president twitched, gritting her teeth on the inside. As if things didn't get worse, Sayaka thought with a little anger due to seeing dead bodies of both civilians and heroes piling up in her city. Mera finally had enough of the silence and voiced his concerns. "Listen, it's a little risky, but I can get some more boots on the ground. We can't do anything without our government's permission." Sayaka interrupted, looking up at him. Mera couldn't believe what he was hearing. He let out a laugh of frustration. "Oh. Great. That's just perfect. Well, while we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, these new villains can continue to trample our beloved country apart. You think I don't want to end this insanity as much as you do?" Sayaka snapped. "For all we know, we could end up putting more innocent lives at risk if we start sending in more soldiers and heroes." The public dash. "Oh, right. The public. We certainly can't forget that they're also involved in this SHT show with this unknown group of villains slaughtering them live on national television." Mera hollered while throwing up his hands. Sayaka was about to reprimand him for his language when something on the TV got their attention. "No way. It can't be." The female reporter shouted in disbelief, making Sayaka and Mera look back at the screen as their faces shifted to utter surprise. "It's those vigilantes. Mara shouted in surprise to see those kids on the screen. Just what are they doing? He asked as every agent in the room to stop what they were doing to see the new development on the TV screen. I don't know, but it looks like they're heading to where those villains are at. Sayaka said as her attention was now focused on this broadcast. All Might just finished up dealing with all the buglars in the surrounding area, as he was now seen helping the firefighters, police officers, paramedics, soldiers, and heroes rescuing people who were hurt from the attack. I've got another one here. All Might shouted while holding an unconscious man in his arms, as just pulled him out of his car. Two firefighters came over to the symbol of peace and took the man from the hero, as he was now in their care. Thanks All Might, we can take it from here. A firefighter said as he and his partner pulled the man way to the other injured or unconscious civilians who were rode up and laying on the ground with blankets underneath them, as paramedics were doing their best to thread them. Right, it doesn't like they need my help anymore. Then I should hurry to somewhere else that needs my assistance. All Might said as it seemed that he wasn't needed here anymore and took off into the sky with a mighty leap. As All Might was leaping from building to building searching for anyone who needed his help, he caught something in the glacé of his right eye that made his eyes widen in great shock. Ha! All Might cried out before landing on top of a building's rooftop and then swung his attention to one of the jumbo screens in the city to see the two Go-Busters and his niece on the news. Melissa? What in the world are you doing with young Midoriya and Amamiya? He exclaimed to see her with his two students and that they were going to fight the Vaglas. He heard that David and Melissa were coming to Japan, but the hero never would have imagined that his niece would have a connection with the Go-Busters. Miruko was panting heavily and her body was covered in cuts and bruises while being surrounded by a pile of broken buglars' bodies and parts lying scattered around the floor, as all the Vaglas in this part of the city were finally dealt with. The rabbit heroine did her best to pummel the killer robots, but not so easily as she liked to imagine. While indeed her kicks were far more than a match for them. However, those buglars had an advantage in numbers, and that they didn't feel pain at all. And these facts very displeased her. DMN, now that was a killer workout, Miruko said wiping the sweat from her chin, before looking down at the defeated buglars with her face getting her signature scowl. And these are just the low-level grunts. How am I going to fight against stronger opponents if I have this much trouble with small files like this? Wait. I think I see something appreciating us from the distance. Is that a car and motorcycle? Chito's voice made Miruko's ears twitch in surprise, as her attention drowned to a nearby TV behind the glass of an electronics store. No way. It can't be. In curiosity, Miruko moved to where the television was and her eyes nearly popped out of her skull at what she saw on the screen. No way. Miruko shouted in surprise to see the Go-Busters on the news. Somewhere else in the city, Ryukyu, Fat Gum, Sun Eater, Lemillion, Nijire-chan, Hound Dog, and a bunch of soldiers and heroes were looking on a TV screen to seeing Ren, Midoriya, and Melissa on the news running head straight to where all the Vaglas in the city had gathered. Hey, check it out. It's Ren and Izuku on the news. But who's that girl with them and why is she dressed in their team uniform? Nijire-chan asked as no one was able to give the girl an answer to her questions. I dunno, but there must be a reason why she's there with them, Hound Dog said to his student as he squinted his eyes at what was on the broadcast. You think they can win? Sun Eater said in a nervous tone. You saw how many of those Vaglas were there, and we were struggling to deal with only a few of them. Of course, they can bud. Lemillion said slapping his friend back for encouragement while also giving one of his bright smiles. They're Super Sentai after all, and if they can't do it no one can. He said as he knew the Go-Busters would pull through. Lemillion's right, Amajiki. We have to believe they'll win this. So let's cheer those kids on. Fat Gum suggested to his intern. Right, after all this is their battle to face alone, Ryukyu said in agreement as this was a fight between Super Sentai and their enemies. Heck yeah. Go get a Go-Busters. Nijire-chan cheered loudly for their success. While Nizu, the wild pussycats, Aizawa, and Midnight were able to get all the civilians in their care to safety at a nearby community center, the heroes, police officers, soldiers, and civilians saw Shoto's live broadcast on a jumbo screen in the city, which shows the Go Busters rushing towards the Valgas. Well now, isn't this interesting? Nizu said with an intrigued smile, as he didn't expect to see Melissa shield with the Go Busters, and wearing their team uniform. Which would only mean that she was chosen to be the Yellow Buster. It's Ren and Midoriya. Tiger said in surprise to see the two young heroes on the jumbo screen. But who is that girl with them? No clue, but what in the world are they doing? Pixie Bob asked in confusion. It looks like they're about to take on all of those villains. Ragdoll pointed out, much to everyone's shock, but for a few people who already figured out what they were doing. But that's insane. Mandalay cried out in shock. There's way too many of them for them to take on alone. Be that as it may, they have to go, Aizawa said with a stone-cold look on his face. Because if the Vaglas get their hands on all the Enetron, then our world is done for. He said, reminding them what was at stake. As much as I do not like it, Aizawa right. Midnight said with a frown. This is a problem that only the Super Sentai can deal with. The other pros didn't like the idea of leaving this to those kids but said nothing, as they remembered the Tokusatsu hero's history and knew that the Go Busters were the only ones who could stop those monsters. Indeed, Nizu said while his eyes were glued onto the jumbo screen. Let's have faith that those kids will pull through. He stated with everyone in the area watching the news. Mina, Kirishima, and the other people at the evacuation shelter were watching the live news broadcast on mobile devices, and could not help but look in amazement at the three Go Busters charging into danger to face the army of Vaglas alone. Hey, Mina. Kirishima said as he and her watched the Go Busters in action on their own phones. I got a feeling that this is going to be pretty manly, Mina. He said, anticipation for what's to come next. So true, Kirishima, so very true, Mina said in agreement with her friend. The Yaoyorozus and Himiko were seen driving away from the upcoming battle that was about to take place. They were watching the broadcast on the mini television in their limousine. Please be okay, guys. Momo said, concerned with Himiko holding her hand tight as she was also worried for the Sentai team. It's going to be alright. They'll make it out of this one piece. Mona muttered in fear, shivering at the sight of the killer robots on the TV screen. Let's pray that they do, or else we're done for, Mito said, embracing his wife to calm her down, and gently rubbing her back. Kick their butts, guys. Himiko shouted her encouragement for her friends, despite them not hearing it. Izumi resident, afternoon. At the Izumi household, the family of three was left stunned at what they were watching on their TV. No way. Tatsuo said, gasping in surprise. It's them. Hayami said, being as shocked as her husband. The Go Busters. Koda shouted with a face of pure excitement. Hamacho Hotel, afternoon. David couldn't help but gawk at his hotel TV screen in shock, as he was watching his daughter on it. Melissa. David shouted as he was shocked to see Melissa, and with the Go Busters no less, heading to where those group of villains assembled. What in blazes are you doing? He shouted in a panicked tone. Midoriya resident, afternoon. Back at the Midoriya's house, Inko, Eri, and the two Buddy Royd were standing in the living room and watching the news with worried expressions at the Vaglas rampage on their city. This is getting worse by the second, Rabbit. Yusada commented on how bad things were getting out there. I just hope that Izuku is okay, Gorosaki said, feeling great concern for his partner. Are you sure that Renonii-chan and Izuku going to be okay? Eri questioned with her eyes watering up at the idea of her older brother leaving her alone. Don't worry, sweetheart, they'll be fine, Inko said, calming down the little girl with a hug, as she was trying to mask her own worries about her son not coming back alive. Just have faith that they'll come back home in one piece. Okay, I will, Eri said as she started to pray for their safe return. All their attention was drawn back to the television when Chitose announced sometimes, which made all of their eyes widen in surprise to see who it was on the screen. Oh my goodness, it's Izuku and Ren. Inko shouted while shocked to see her son and Ren on the news. They're okay. Eri cried out in joy to see that they were all right. And Miss Melissa is with them. She said happily, with a little spark of hope. You know her, Eri? Inko asked the little girl in curiosity. Yes. I met her yesterday with Ren-Oni-chan and Nick. She was really nice and pretty too. Eri said with a smile. Hey Usada, look. Gorosaki said pointing at the screen to the blonde-haired girl running next to their human partners. Is that girl with them who I think she is? Yeah. She's wearing our team uniform and has on a morphin brace. Usada exclaims with a tone of joy and excitement. She must be our new yellow buster. He happily said as the buddy Royd now had his human partner. What does that mean now? Inko asked with Eri also wanted to know as well. It means that the Go Busters is finally completely with the 3 main members. Usada said to them with Eri and Inko gasping. And now with 3, the Vagless doesn't stand a chance. Gorosaki said as newfound hope lived inside of them now. Throughout the entire world, countless people from heroes, villains, vigilantes, businesses, world leaders, and governments were watching the live coverage of the upcoming showdown between the Go Busters and Vagless that was provided by Chitose and her crew. Many, especially the people of Japan, were about to watch history in the making, as in the weeks and months to follow, this moment would circulate on every news network. It would be shown again on the anniversary of the Vagless incident year after year. The world would look back to this moment and point. There was the dawn of a new age of heroes. That a symbol of hope was born and the Super Sentai was here to protect the Earth from evil. Tokyo Tower, afternoon. Shoveloid and his troops of buglars were standing in the middle of the plaza and in front of Tokyo Tower. Finally, we're here. Shoveloid said looking up at the tower with great pleasure. Okay, buglars. Start tearing this place and find that sweet Enetron. He ordered his troops to move out to do as they were commanded. Hold it right there. A voice shouted out loudly that it made Shoveloid and buglars stop what they were doing. Huh? The shovel metaloid said in confusion while also turning around in the direction of the voice along with buglars. What is it now? He demanded in irritation. They saw Ren, Midoriya, and Melissa coming towards them before stopping a good distance away from the army of killer robots. The 3 Go Busters were standing side by side each other with Ren in the middle, Midoriya on his right side, and Melissa on his left side, right before Chitose and her assistants had arrived just in time and were behind some bushes to broadcast the upcoming battle for everyone to see. The Go Busters then proceeded to take off their black sunglasses and toss them aside, as they stared down the Vagless forces with serious glares while a cameraman of Chitose's crew captured each one of the Go Busters as determined expressions for the entire world to see. Well, what do we have here? More stupid humans trying to stop us. Shoveloid said in a mocking tone. Beat it, brat. I've got more important things to do right now than dealing with you. He told them. Sorry, but that not going to happen. You Vagless ain't getting your hands on any Enetron today. Ren said, shocking the metaloid, along with everyone else in the world who was listening to this conversation. So you know what we are then, huh? Shoveloid said as he didn't expect everyone in this world to know who they were. Yeah, we do, and what you're planning to do to the planet, Melissa said sternly to the villains. We're not going to let you bring Messiah into our world, Midoriya told the evil robot with a hardened tone. That's right. We're sending you rust buckets a one-way trip to the scrap heap. Ren said as he pointed at the metaloid. Hearing that made the metaloid burst out laughing at the thought of them stopping him. Oh, and what makes you think that 3 puny weaklings can beat us? Shoveloid said laughing at how they were thinking about challenging him and his army of buglars. Such insolences. You humans can't stop the might of the Vagless. This world's so-called heroes already tried and failed. So what can a bunch of powerless brats do to stop us from destroying this city? The shovel metaloid said as the buglars prepared their battle stance. You're wrong. We do have the power to stop you Vagless. We may not be the original Go Busters team, but we're still Super Sentai. Midoriya stated with an absolutely serious tone that made the metaloid stop laughing and gasp in surprise at what he just heard from the Blue Buster. What did you just say? Shoveloid asked in a stunned tone at what the human said to him. Did you just call yourself the Super Sentai? We did, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect the Earth from some like you, no matter the cost. Melissa shouted while she and the others showed their morphin braces to the metaloid that froze him in place at the sight of the morphers. Wait, those devices? Shoveloid cried while taking a step back in great concern. No. That's not possible. You can't be them. He said in disbelief. I don't know how you came back, but I do know one thing for sure is that we're here to shut down you Vagless for good and remind you freaks what happens when you mess with the Super Sentai. Ren declared their goal loudly in a determined manner for everyone in the whole world to hear. He then glances over at both of his teammates by his side as they look raring to go as well. Ready, guys? He asked them. Yeah. I'm ready to go. Midoriya spoke to them with determination in his voice. Do you even need to ask? Melissa said, nodding in agreement. Let's do this. The three busters then brought up their left arms and moved their right hands to their left arm to twist the dial on their morphin braces, causing a pair of yellow shades to open up with a mini hologram of their buster suits appearing. It's morphin time. A voice from the morphin braces announced. Then cylinder of green digital energy was formed around the three teens' feet as it was traveling up their bodies to form their suits. The green digital energy fully formed their outfits, from their feet to their neck. Then next another cylinder of green digital energy was formed around the three Go Busters' necks as it was traveling up their heads, with the green digital energy fully forming their helmets, but the visors were empty, and could see the three teens' eyes, while the Go Busters then moved their left arms close to their faces and then pressed a button on the tip of their morphin braces. Let's morphin. Ren, Midoriya, and Melissa invoked as the yellow shades on their morphin braces glow green before shooting onto their helmets as the digital energy transforms the shades into visors to complete their morph. No. It's the Go Busters. Shoveloid cried in disbelief to see the same Sentai team in this world that defeated him in the past. From all over the world, everyone watching this went completely speechless and amazed as they were shocked to their very cores to see three Go Busters transforming together as a team. Whoa! This feels great! Melissa exclaimed with joy as she could feel a surge of power traveling throughout her whole body. She was wearing a yellow leather jacket and black pants with a skirt attached to the waist. The jacket had a silver line going across the hips and arms. The outfit also sported black straps with a communication device GB on it attached to the left side. The yellow helmet had a silver mouthpiece and a blue visor. The top of the helmet was shaped like a rabbit. However, the eyes were headlights. I know, right? Midoriya replied to her with an agreeing nod. I love that suit, by the way. Thanks. Melissa thanked him for the compliment. Now that we finally got a third teammate with us, let's kick things off with a roll call, Ren suggested to them at the thought of doing a team roll call with all the main Go Busters together. Midoriya and Melissa both nodded to him in response, as they began their roll call for the entire world to see. Red Buster. Ren shouted while grabbing his left arm with his right hand. Blue Buster. Midoriya shouted while pounding his right fist into his left hand. Yellow Buster. Melissa shouted while touching her straps like a tank top to extend them a little before letting go. Takumiai Sentai Go Busters. The three shouted together in sync while striking a team pose, as a massive 6-story high explosion erupted from directly behind the transformed teens, with the Go Busters logo appearing as well, giving them a spectacular and heroic ambience for everyone who was witnessing it. Oh. Shoveloid whispered in concern as the robot was now worried that he would have to face the Go Busters again. Amazing. Chitos whispered gleefully at what she was witnessing in front of herself right now. Be sure to capture every single detail of this fight, understood? She told her assistants that this was going to be a historic moment in their society. Yes, ma'am. Her assistants replied back as they focused all their attention on this upcoming battle. The Red Buster then pointed his right finger out at the Vagless army to make one last declaration that would kick-start everything off for the new Sentai team. Ren couldn't help but smirk in pure excitement and anticipation for what was about to happen next, as he waited his entire life to say this next line for real and really meant it. Busters! Ren announced out loud for everything in the world to go completely silent, with all attention were on them, as everyone watching this from different locations throughout the planet held their breaths in anticipation to see what would happen next. Ready! He said, holding his word while he, Midoriya, and Melissa each took their own running positions, with Ren placing his arms forward as his right hand was hovering over his left hand. Go! He then slammed his right fist down on his other hand and soon all hell broke loose. Tokyo Tower, afternoon. Busters! The Red Buster shouted while pointing forward at the enemy. Ready! Then he and the other Busters got into running positions, with the Red Buster placing his arms forward as his right hand was over his other one. Kill them! Shoveloid ordered the Buglars behind him, as the army of Vagless grunts pointed their blasts at the Go Busters and began to open fire on the Sentai team. Go! The Red Buster announced while slamming his hands down together, as each one of the Go Busters took off in a sprint towards the Vagless forces and the hailstorm of laser blasts. Busters ready, go! As the Go Busters dashed forward at the Vagless, another explosion erupted behind them caused by the buglers' laser fire, as the entire world was left astonished and bewildered at watching the three teenagers bravely charging headfast in kamikaze formation at the invaders, while at the same time evading laser fire without a hint of hesitation or worry for their own safety. But for some strange reason, everyone also began to hear music playing in the background and wondered where it was coming from, but didn't have the time to question it with the battle going on. The three Busters also heard the music playing but were too focused on the battle in front of them to question and just decided to roll with it, as listening to the song was actually good motivation for them. The Go Busters soon came into reach of the Vagless forces and started to fight back with a series of punches and kicks, as they demonstrated their very own martial arts skills, with the Sentai team of three instinctively split up to fight their individual battles. I'm sure it was on that day that our destiny began. The Red Buster punched one of the Buglar hard in the jaw and sent the other Buglar sprawling to the floor before twisting his leg. A third Buglar tried to hit him with a wild haymaker, but the Red Buster ducked under the strike and punched him in the gut. As the grunt fell to the ground, the Red Buster shot another glance up at two more Buglars coming at him, before suddenly getting up to dodge an attack from one of Buglar and spin kicks the robot in the back. The Red Buster then reacts quickly enough to catch the other Buglar arm from hitting him, as he flips the Buglar over on the floor before delivering a devastating knee strike to the robot's head that takes it out. We're not going to run away. And we can't stop, because we've seen the future. He wasn't done yet, as the Red Buster used his Buster power to move in a streak of red/green blur, much faster than any of the Vagless could follow, and lead waste to a good chunk out of their numbers with rapid-fire punches as the Buglars took critical damage before exploding one by one. Our hearts are linked as one. So we'll all fight together as friends. The Blue Buster floored a grunt and slammed his fist into the Buglar. He then noticed a few Buglars surrounding him and saw one of them throwing a trash can at him before countering with a spinning high kick that deflected the objects right back at the Buglar, which takes it out before easily blocking a swing from a Buglar weapon with his right arm. He proceeds to spin the robot around before forcing the grunt on its knees as he then roundhouse kicks an enemy coming at him from the left and uses his monument from the kick to swiftly hit the Buglar on his knees. The Blue Buster quickly rushes forward to punch out 3 more foes in an instant before grabbing a punch directly at him and returning the favor with an uppercut that sends the robot soaring backward on the ground. Scramble. For -2-3-1, let's go. Soon more Buglars came charging at him in a large group, which only made the Blue Buster grin as he clutched his right hand into a fist and flexed his muscles to activate his Buster power. He then crouched down and leaped up 20 feet into the air, while he let out a battle cry and slammed his fists onto the ground, causing a powerful mini-earthquake to range out that swiftly eliminated the monsters as they were sent flying away. Busters ready, go. Our resolve is unbreakable. The yellow Buster looked to see a Buglar leaped at her, then sidestepped to deliver a spinning kick to the robot's back and proceeded to kick out at another, before striking a third enemy with a palm strike. The monsters continued running at her and swarmed the girl, with the yellow Buster laying a flurry of punches on the Buglars around her and breaking them until they collapsed, before cartwheeling to the side while jumping to dodge an attack from a fourth Buglar as she leaps back at her attacker to retaliate with an axe kick to the face. We won't let evil access to our beloved world. Another Buglar rushed at the yellow Buster for an attack, only for the girl to use her Buster power to jump over the Buglar with a backflip and avoid the assault, then falling back down to deliver a knee drop on the grunt's skull and flooring her opponent. Target lock on. Don't let up now. We have the numbers advantage. Shoveloid ordered as another wave of Buglars ran at the Go Busters. The Go Busters responded by tapping their transpods to summon some weapons to fight the incoming wave of enemies. Moving out immediately, it's morphin' time. Transport. A voice from their transpods announced as the Sogon blades digitally materialized in front of the 3 in midair. They grabbed the Sogon blades and rushed at the Vaglas to slash their weapons at the grunts with such skill, that the Buglars were dropping like flies. Go Busters headfirst into this crisis. The Red Buster uses his super speed to cut down the Buglars in a matter of seconds and makes them explode. The Blue Buster grabs a Buglar by the neck and lifts it up before using his super strength to slam the grunt on the ground with enough force that it leaves a large web cracks on the floor and also knocking over a few Vaglas. And the Yellow Buster hopped up at a random Buglar and then used a headlock technique to spin round the Vaglas's neck while laying wide kicks on any Buglar, surrounding her before proceeding to slam the grunt she was using headfirst on the ground. Shutdown complete. Shoveloid, who was watching all of this, growled in frustration and decided he had enough of watching this, before jumping into the battle as well to deal with the Go Busters himself, since the Buglars were proving to be not enough to stop the humans. Enough of this nonsense. Shoveloid shouted before holding up his left hand to fire red energy lasers from his fingers at the 3 Go Busters. Special Ops Sentai Go Busters. Ran, Midoriya, and Melissa quickly noticed this before they stopped fighting with the Buglars and barrel rolled out of the way in time from getting hit by the lasers, as they immediately regained their foot and charged at the metaloid. We swore to delete the sadness. The Red Buster was the first to attack the metaloid, as he used his speed to disappear from Shoveloid's sight and spun around the Vaglas, when all of a sudden, Shoveloid was struck by slash after slash as sparks were flying off his body, making the robot scream in pain as the speedster came to a halt before back-kicking Shoveloid in the chest and sending skidding back a few feet on the floor. And also to become strong. You gotta keep up, Ren commented with a grin while looking back at the enraged metaloid. DMN, you. Shoveloid cursed at the Red Buster before standing back up and firing lasers from his fingers at the Buster. But the Red Buster used his super speed to vanish in a red blur as the lasers missed him. And we will stand up to it all. Then it was the Blue Buster's turn to face the metaloid, as he let out a battle cry while charging at the Shoveloid like a bull and raised his right fist to punch the robot. Such foolishness. Shoveloid stated as he raised his shovel arm in response and swung it at the Blue Buster. Both the Blue Buster's fist and Shoveloid's shovel arm collided with one another, that the impact generated a miniature shockwave throughout the air, as the two were now locked in a stalemate of brute strength. In order to block out any fears, I refuse to let you, Vaglas, win. The blue buster declared in a struggling tone, before using every bit of his super strength to slowly overpower the metaloid. Shoveloid was shocked by this new development, as the blue buster let out one last mighty cry to slightly push back the metaloid, breaking the stalemate and giving him an opening to exploit, as Midoriya threw another hard punch with his left fist to Shoveloid's face that sends him soaring back on the ground. If they try to go ahead from here, for sure. The shovel metaloid recovered quickly from the attack but failed to notice in time that the yellow buster was coming at him with a flying kick, as her foot made contact with his face and flew past Shoveloid. "I'm far from done," the yellow buster shouted while turning back around to leap at the Vaglis again for another flying kick. "This barricade is ready to not let them." The yellow buster's second kick successfully landed while flying past Shoveloid again and forcing the robot to turn his body in the opposite direction. But before Shoveloid could recover, he saw Melissa coming at him for a third flying kick. "Scramble. For 2, 3, 1, let's go." "Not this time," Shoveloid yelled while raising his right shovel arm to block the yellow buster's kick. "This is nothing to the likes of me." He swung his right arm to push the yellow buster back in the air, but she quickly recovered by backflipping in midair. "Busters ready go." "Pi-ugh." The yellow buster couldn't help but rely as she slowly descended back on the ground before pressing her transpod. "Transport." A voice from Melissa's transpod announced as the Ishigan buster digitally materialized in front of her in midair. "Our decision is professional." The yellow buster grabs the blast and starts firing multiple laser shots at the Shoveloid, making him cry out in pain while he takes a couple of steps back. "We won't leave a trace of their evil in our world." Just when things were looking bad for the shovel metaloid, it only got worse as Ren and Midoriya leaped back into the fray with them suddenly appeared above the metaloid without warning, then double-slashing Shoveloid with their blades and making more sparks come off his body while he cried out from the pain. "You DMN brats are really starting to annoy me," Shoveloid shouted with rage, as he charged at the two busters. Shoveloid swings his shovel arm at both the busters, only for the red buster to barrel roll forward on the ground to avoid the attack and getting behind the metaloid. The blue buster steps back to dodge Shoveloid's shovel arm before swinging his blade at the Vaglis, but Shoveloid blocks it with his shovel arm, as Ren suddenly comes in for his own attack, which is stopped by Shoveloid and forces the boy to barrel roll on the ground again to move right by his teammate's side, with Midoriya failing to land a hit on the metaloid. Target lock on. The red buster and blue buster then move their weapons at the Vaglis, but Shoveloid hops back to dodge the blade, as he points his left fingers at the two busters and fires lasers at them. But two boys moved back while deflecting lasers fired at them. Moving out at full power, it's time for Buster. "Run, Midoriya." The red buster and blue buster looked back to see the yellow buster running towards them, with her Sogon blade in hand. "Give me a boost," she said before jumping at them. "Go go, it's a clash of justice versus invasion." The two busters knew what she meant and nodded to one another, as the red buster and blue buster grabbed onto each other's hands, with the yellow buster landed on their connected hands, which she used a springboard to launch herself at Shoveloid in a fast-paced while backflipping forward to thrusting her blade into the Vaglis's chest, and propelling the metaloid's body away from the ground. Shutdown confirmed. Takumiai Sentai Go Busters. Arg. Shoveloid grunts out in unbelievable pain while sprawling out on the floor before stopping in place. Target lock on. Busters ready go. The Go Busters immediately regrouped with each other, as they stared down the Shoveloid with the metaloid struggling back on his feet and a number of Buglar surrounding their leader. Guitar playing. "You cursed humans. You're just as irritatingly annoying to deal with as the last Go Busters," Shoveloid said to them in a tone mixed with pain and anger, before smashing his fist on the ground in frustration. "Buglars deal with these brats," the metaloid ordered before retreating back to the tower. "Wait!" Ren shouted at the fleeing metaloid while he and the other busters ran after him, only to have their path blocked by the Buglars as they began to fight them. We don't have time to deal with these guys, Midoriya stated while fighting off the buglars. We need to go after that metaloid and finish it off before the Megazord arrives. Then let's burst right them to make a path, Melissa suggested while cutting down another Vaglis. Okay, let's do it, the Red Buster declared to them as each of them used their buster power to ram right through some of the buglars in their way and created an opening for them to use. We got an opening, move it guys. Yeah. The blue and yellow busters cried out in agreement. The Go Busters then chase after the shovel metaloid with the other Vaglis grunts hot on their tail, as they all make their way to Tokyo Tower. Meanwhile, Chitose and her news crew were still secretly there, followed after them from a safe distance while broadcasting the whole battle for the entire world to see. As he was running away, Shoveloid made his way to a Tokyo Tower staircase before turning to see the Go Busters hot on his tail as they were fighting off a group of buglars. TCH, persistent, the shovel metaloid muttered in annoyance, before resuming back to climbing up the tower. Ren cuts down another buglar, before noticing Shoveloid getting away and pursuing the metaloid, as he jumps on top of the turnstile gate entrance to the staircase and maneuvers quickly up the gate's bars before leaping on the stairwell to chase down the Vaglis. Midoriya and Melissa soon followed right behind him, with Midoriya using one of the turnstile gate rails to boost himself on the second staircase before turning around to shoot down a few buglars with his blaster, while Melissa used her power jump to easily hop onto the staircase next to the blue buster, and then processed after Ren with the remaining Vaglis grunts chasing them as well. After that, Chitose and her crew stopped in front of the turnstile gate and knew they couldn't go any farther, then decided to change tactics on their approach. Quickly, SWCH to a drone camera. We can't lose them. Chitose ordered her assistants, as they did what she told them. Yes, ma'am. One of her assistants said as they brought out a drone camera and remote control from a bag. After a few seconds of setting up the drone camera, one of the assistants used the remote control to turn on the drone to make it fly in the air where the battle was still taking place and continue the broadcast. When the drone camera got into a good position in the air, the camera feed switched to the flying drone with everyone now watching the Go Busters fighting the buglars in different locations on the tower's stairwell. We are connected. Until we fulfill our promise. The Red Buster was throwing some roundhouse kicks on a buglar before taking it out and then leaped over another buglar behind him to slash his blade down on the robot. The Blue Buster was hanging down the rails of a stairwell like a monkey and using his blaster to pick off the buglars one by one. The Yellow Buster grabbed onto a bugler's arm and stabbed the grunt in the chest for a killing blow before backjabbing another buglar that was attacking her from behind, and then leaped high into the air to another staircase. Across the entire globe, every news station was broadcasting the live transmission to their channel on every media in the world for all to see, as people in dozens of countries were sporting odd expressions as they witnessed an impossible spectacle happen before their very eyes from the Go Busters' battle with the Vaglis. Moreover, everyone was beyond impressed by the Sentai team's unbelievable teamwork and incredible combat skills without the use of quirks on display, as more analytical people observed their battle and noticed the Go Busters' unique powers to help support one another and coordinate in perfect sync. Everyone was already used to watching heroes fighting villains, but for some strange reason, the Go Busters make fighting villains look even more cooler than usual than with the pro heroes. Heroes, parents, teenagers, and children of nations from all over the globe were sporting rather excited expressions on their faces as they watched the live coverage. One by one, the Valgas grunts fell as the three Go Busters' movements were fluid and efficient. Despite facing overwhelming numbers, they never lost their composures, always one step ahead of their opponents, with them either ducking, dodging, weaving, or tanking the enemy attacks and then countering the minions with devastating efficiency and effectiveness strikes. Many, especially the people of Japan, were sporting odd expressions as they witnessed an impossible spectacle happen before their very eyes, with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other social accounts were sharing the same general reaction as the was trending all over social media at a rapid rate. Plus the music in the background made this fight even more impressive than it already was from the beginning, as everyone was enjoying the SHT out of this battle. Children under 13 or less from across the globe were especially jumping for joy as they saw Go Busters kicking major butt against the evil monsters, speaking phrases such as, awesome, badass, and wicked cool, are among a few examples. We'll certainly protect. Meanwhile, Shoveloid was able to reach the tallest room in the tower where visitors or tourists can view all of the city, thinking he was finally safe from the Go Buster, but not a moment too soon the three Go Busters arrived in the room to confront Metaloid as they managed to deal with all the buglars in their way up to the tower. Nowhere left to run Metaloid, Melissa said as they got the Shoveloid cornered. So prepared to get shut down. Midoriya declared, to which the Metaloid scoffed in anger. The time that we call, today. As if I would let myself lose to humans again. Shoveloid angrily at the new Go Busters. Prepare to die, Go Busters. The Metaloid shouted while rushing at three teens, as they brought out their Sogon blades in response and shifted into combat stances. Let's take him down. Ren said to his teammates as they charged towards the Metaloid as well, with the four engaged in combat and the drone camera still broadcast from outside the tower. We'll build up, brick by brick. Shoveloid swings his shovel arm sideways at the incoming busters, only for the three of them to barrel roll on the floor simultaneously to avoid the strike at them before quickly regaining their foot to attack Shoveloid, with Ren blocking another one of his attacks, while Melissa and Midoriya slash him in the abdomen as the two got behind the Vaglas. Ren forcefully made Shoveloid's arm around before grabbing a hold of the Metaloid to hold him in place, but Shoveloid jerked away, forcing him and the Red Buster to spiral around, with the Red Buster recovering first to throw some kicks at Shoveloid. Shoveloid managed to block the Red Buster's kicks while taking a few steps backward, right before the three busters attacked the Shovel Metaloid together as a group, with Shoveloid trying to fend them off, then moved out of the way from the heroes, with the Go Busters regrouping. The idealistic future that we want to reach. You are going on my last nerves. Shoveloid cries as he charges at them again, and goes after the Blue Buster first. But the Blue Buster ducks under the Metaloid's shovel arm and behind his back, before pushing over to the rails and window, where the Yellow Buster is, and slashes at the Metaloid, making the evil robot cry out in pain before she dodges another one of his attacks from his shovel arm. Then the Red Buster side flips at Shoveloid, who lets his guard down for a brief to kick the Metaloid hard in the chest. Busters ready, go. Arg. Shoveloid cries in pain as he suddenly is forced to take a couple of steps back and growls in frustration at how he is losing so badly. I had enough of this. He pointed his left hand at the three humans and began firing lasers at them in uncontrollable rage. The Go Busters immediately responded by avoiding the laser fire, with Midoriya and Melissa dashing the angered Metaloid and grabbing him by the arms to restrain his movements. Our resolve is unbreakable. Hey, let go of me, you little. Shoveloid demeaned while trying to break free from both of the Busters' hold, but to no luck as he was struggling. Then the Shovel Metaloid stopped struggling to notice the Red Buster standing in front of him, with Ren flipping the Sogon blade in his hand to a reverse grip hold before performing a dropkick at the Metaloid. No wait dash, Shoveloid didn't get the chance to finish his sentence, with the Red Buster's feet hitting the Metaloid with enough force that he was sent flying right through the metal rails and out of the tower's window as the glass shatters. Arf! He screamed in terror while falling from the highest point of Tokyo Tower. We won't let evil access to our beloved world. The Go Busters moved to the broken hole in the window and pushed the button on their transpods. Transport. A voice from the transpods announces, as three Ishigan Busters digitally materialize in front of teens as they grab them. Time to finish him off. The Red Buster stated to his teammate while holding up his blaster. Roger. The Blue and Yellow Busters replied in agreement as they ready their blasters too. Target lock on. Then the three Busters suddenly leaped out of the broken hole in the window and fell after the Metaloid, much to everyone's shock at the three Vigilantes' fearless stunt. As the Go Busters were falling, they then pointed their Ishigan Busters directly at Shoveloid, who was still screaming. Moving out immediately, it's morphin time. It's time for Buster. A voice from the Ishigan Busters announced while the blasters were charging up power. Busters go, so let's plunge Busters headfirst into this crisis. The Go Busters then pulled the trigger on their Ishigan Busters, and the three blasters fired powerful laser blasts straight at Shoveloid with him noticing it until the last minute. No. I can't lose like this again. Shoveloid stated agonizingly right as the three laser blasts hit him square on with a fatal blow, causing his body to spark violently with electricity. Arf. The metaloid screamed out one last final time in pain before erupting in a fiery explosion in mid-air, as the three Go Busters flew down right into the explosion. Shutdown complete. Down on the ground, Chitos, her assistants, and countless people throughout the world witnessed the Go Busters coming out of the fiery explosion and back toward the ground, as they break their fall by barrel rolling on the floor and quickly regain their footing before looking up at what was left of the metaloid. Special Ops Sentai Go Busters. Shutdown confirmed. The Red Buster declares as they manage to defeat the metaloid, with the music in the background also stopping. The other Busters looked up at the flames of destroyed metaloid dispelling, and they all looked speechless at their handly work. That really just happened, right? The Blue Buster asked, unsure of himself at their claimed victory. I'm pretty sure it did. The Yellow Buster replied with equal unsure. This isn't a dream after all. Everyone. The three teens turned their hands to see Nick running towards them, as he was there watching the whole thing from behind a tree. You did it. The metaloid is defeated. He said with a joyful tone while stopping in front of them. Yeah, it looks like we did. Ren said with a smirk but soon turned into a serious expression. But it's not over yet. We still got one more fight left before this is over. He said, making his two teammates' expressions serious looks too, as they knew what was coming. And it's the most important one of all, Midoriya stated with a grim tone while clenching his fists in concern. We only got 2 minutes and counting, before the Megazord arrived, Melissa said looking at her morphin brace to check how much time they had left. They all knew what was on its way and the mass destruction it could cause unless they acted immediately before it was too late. Not too far from the Go Busters, Chitos and her news crew present at the scene were left stunned and pure awestruck along with the other spectators watching from different locations across the globe, at how they managed to take down the metaloid in a way that has never been done before by any hero in the world. There was a delayed reaction, as no one knew how to respond to what they had just seen from the vigilantes, while the Go Busters' allies, families, and friends of many backgrounds watched the battle with interest, excitement, and many other emotions of the positive spectrum, as they in celebrity for their victory. Chitos's astonishment soon dissipated into indignation, as she had a mad grin on her face while at the three Busters. Come on, this is our best chance to talk to them now. Chitos said to her news crew in an enthusiastic tone, as they quickly moved to the Go Busters for an interview. Ren, call 0. We need our Buster vehicle to deal with the Vagless Megazord. Nick said in an urgent tone as they were running out of time. Ren nodded quietly to his buddy Royd partner as he was about to call the god for his support but was soon stopped by an unexpected appearance. Excuse me, Go Busters. Chitos shouted while getting Ren, Midoriya, Melissa, and Nick's attention, as they were surprised to see people there. Who are you? Nick demanded as he saw a news crew approaching them and started pointing their cameras in the three Busters' faces while invading their personal space. My name is Chitos Kazuki, a freelance reporter, Chitos said eagerly placing a mic out in front of them, as she wanted to get an interview about everything they knew about the Vagless. If it's not too much trouble, would you mind answering a few questions about these villains you called the Vagless, and how do you know so much Abu Dash? Look, you need to get out of here right now. The danger isn't over yet. Ren shouted loudly enough to make Chitos, her crew, along with everyone else in the whole world to freeze up at the boys' statement about how the battle wasn't as far from finished as they thought. Wait, what do you mean by it's not over yet? One of Chitos's assistants asked in a confused tone. He's saying that there's something even worse coming than the metaloid and buglars we've just fought against, Melissa warned them in a deadly serious tone. Not only does it have the power to destroy the whole city, but the entire country as well. Midoriya shouts as their warning seems to have made everyone's eyes widen further in fear, especially the people living in Japan. What? Everyone there screams while those watching from the live stream broadcast who hear this are now scared for their lives, as mass panic starts across Japan. You're serious, aren't you? Chitose asked with some fear in her voice from hearing their warning. Yes. The Go Busters and Nick shouted back angrily, which made some of the reporters flinch. Which is why you all need to leave before the MHA, Ren said to him before stopping himself mid-sentence when something caught his attention. Melissa noticed this and got a bit concerned with his strange behavior. Hey, Ren. What the matter? She asked him. Ren didn't respond back to her, as he was more focused on what was in front of him while taking a few steps forward toward one of Chitose's assistants standing in the far back of the group with his back facing everyone. Chitose also noticed this as well and saw a brown-haired man dressed as a news cameraman, while wearing a pair of strange white sunglasses and holding a storage pack over his left shoulder. He isn't a reporter nor one of mine. Chitose thought suspiciously, as she knew the faces of all of her assistants since she personally hand-picked her crew herself. Who is this man? She slightly narrowed her eyes at the man. When the Red Buster got a closer look at the man, his eyes widened in pure shock while gasping from recognizing the person there and then immediately leaped back before pointing his Ishigan Buster at me, much to everyone's shock and confusion. No freaking way, why are you here? The Red Buster shouted at the man with anger in his tone, as he grabbed HRD on his Ishigan Buster. Whoa, run! What are you doing? Midoriya cried out in a freaked-out tone from his friend's unexpected action. Are you out of your mind? Nick said, running up to him, while he and Melissa placed their hands on his arms. You can't just point your weapon at a random person. Melissa scolded him while she and Nick were trying to pull his weapon away from the man. That thing isn't even human. Ren exclaimed as everyone there and the people watching from the broadcast paused in silence to listen to the boy more clearly now. What are you talking about? Melissa asked in a confused tone, with the suspicious cameraman turning to face them. Let's ask him ourselves instead. Ren said as everyone's eyes were now on the cameraman. Now then, why don't you drop the disguise and show us your true form? He said to him. The cameraman quietly looked at the Red Buster and the others there for a good few seconds, before they saw him grinning mischievous smirk on his face with the man raising both of his hands at them. Then multiple cable cords shot from his arms to lash wildly at the humans and Buddy Royd. Move! Midoriya shouted while they all quickly shattered out of the way and avoided getting hit by cable cords. Ren, Midoriya, and Melissa regrouped while holding up their blasters at the new threat before them. Nick was standing a few feet right behind the Go Busters and immediately recognized who it was after seeing that familiar attack, and MLA members also stood a good distance away from the suspicious cameraman while still filming the live broadcast. Then the cable cords retracted back into the man's hands, and his body was now glowing orange with countless numbers surrounding him before dropping his disguise to reveal his true appearance for all to see. You got to kid me. He's here too. Nick cried in shock to see the Go Busters' #1 enemy here in this world. Enter held up his right hand and gave them a friendly wave, with a carefree mirthy smile despite the tense situation. Go Busters! Enter said, greeting everyone there with an oddly friendly, while surprising them and everyone watching the news. Or should say new Go Busters. He stated that this was the first time Enter met them in person. Midoriya resident, afternoon. Enter is here in this world too. Gorosaki panicked with his turning wheel face spinning around. This is really bad. Who is Enter? Inko asked in a worried tone while holding on to Eri as the little girl was frightened by the image of the Vagless avatar on the TV screen. He's enemy #1 of the Go Busters and second in command of the Vagless. Usada said as Inko had a flabbergasted expression on her face like any other mother would in this situation. My baby boy. Inko shouted in fear. Muzudafu City, afternoon. No, that monster is here too. All Might shouted at the image of Enter before shooting off in the air like a speeding bullet. Hang on kids. I'm on my way. He said, jumping from building to building as quickly as he could to help his 2 students and niece. You got to be kidding me. Miruko shouted in disbelief to see what was on the screen. No, why in hell I'm letting those kids fight that F are alone. The rabbit heroine declared. She then took off into the sky as fast as her legs could carry her to where Tokyo Tower is located. No way. Is that who I think it is? Nijire said nervously while pointing her shaking finger at the screen. Yeah, it's him already. There's no mistaking it. Mirio said with a weak expression, as he could feel a cold sweat of fear running down his neck. I want to go home. Tamaki's voice was colored with genuine fear. Of course, he would be back and cause all this trouble. Ryukyu said with narrowed eyes. You know who that guy is, Ryukyu? Hound Dog asked her as she seemed to know the enemy very well. Only by name and his reputation, but that's it. But if he's here then things are about to turn from bad to worse. Ryukyu said with a deadly serious tone that made everyone there, except for the big 3 flinch in concern. Is he really that bad? Fat Gum asked in a slightly scared tone. Trust me, you don't want to know the half of it. Ryukyu said with a grim. SHT. That BSTRD is in our world as well. Aizawa cursed under his breath to see who made an appearance. I guess that explains who was responsible for this attack on the city. Midnight said with a frown. Enter, you monster. You're going to pay for every life taken today, you. Tiger swears in an angry expression while clutching his fists in rage. It makes sense that if the Vaglus returned then its top generals would as well, Pixie Bob said, not liking where this is going. And now this will only make things more complicated for us in the future, Ragdoll said with a worrisome tone. So now what do we do, sir? Mandalay asked the principal of UA. We wait and see what will happen next, Nizu said with an unreadable expression on his face. Tokyo Tower, afternoon. Enter. Ren glowered angrily at the Vaglus avatar. Should have known that you were the one behind all of this madness. He said, nothing, dropping his guard for a second around him. How are you even still alive? You were killed by the original Go Busters years ago. Nick demanded the avatar, only to get a chuckle from the man. Who knows, but I suppose that doesn't matter right now since the act final is about to begin. Enter said with a wicked smile, as his carefree nature was irritating for the Go Busters. You mean the Megazord, Melissa answered with narrow eyes and a tone of rage. Save Ray, madam. Enter said with a mad grin on his face. This will be the Vaglus's debut in this new world. He said dramatically. Nearby, Chitos and her news crew were still fading the whole world the live broadcast. They were shocked to see the avatar changing his appearance while also listening to their conversation and couldn't follow what they were talking about, except for the ones who truly knew about the Super Sentai. Do they know each other? Chitos quietly observed their conversation and could tell that they had a hostile relationship with one another. But despite this, the reporter wasn't going to pass up a good chance like this to learn more about this Vaglus stuff they were talking about. Can't back out now without getting something out of this. She thought to herself. The MLA member then swallowed her nerves before proceeding forward to uncover the same answers from either the Go Busters or Enter. Excuse me. Chitos said loud enough, getting both the Go Busters and Enter's attention onto her. But who just are you anyway? She asked the avatar, who only smirked devilishly in response to the question. Oh, my apologies, allow me to introduce myself. I am Enter and I serve my MSTR, Messiah. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Enter said, introducing himself as he did a slight bow to them, with the Go Busters ready for a fight at a moment noticed. As for who we are, you can dub us by the Vagless, and we're this world's new future. He stated that confusion everyone while the people were surprised at what he heard, even if some of them didn't fully understand things. Vagless? What are you talking about? One of Chitosa's crew members asked next. Let me explain to you pathetic human so you can have peace of mind before your death. Enter said before spreading his arms out wide dramatically. On behalf of the Vagless, I'm here to produce a real show for you all today. A show that will shake this entire world to its very core. He announced to the whole world on national television. Real show? Chitose asked in curiosity, before gasping in shock while freezing place as Enter's words finally dawned on the reporter. Wait a minute. It was you. You're the one responsible for the attacks on the city. She pointed out, shocking the whole world while Enter looked at her in amusement. Impressionant, isn't it? Enter asked with an amusing smirk. It's simple really, we're here to erase you all. The avatar finished with a sinister smile, as this shocked the people watching this about how nonchalantly this guy was destroying an entire city without the slightest care. But, why? A man in Chitosa's crew asked. Just who do you think you people are, and what reason do you have for attacking our city like this? He asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Our reasons are simple. Enter said with an evil grin. Your kind are an inferior species that must be eliminated, much like any other humans that exist in this world. The avatar commented with a voice that was somehow both cold and calculating, while at the same time vile and vicious. We Vagless are advanced life forms in this world. We deserve to live and prosper, but first, we have to eradicate all you human to make the foundation of our empire. The man said, this of course surprised and scared mostly everyone to watch the live broadcast. As if we're going to let you do that, Enter. Ren shouted at the evil avatar. Like I said before, we're going to shut down you and the other Vagless for good. He declared with him, Midoriya, and Melissa glared heavily at the evil avatar. You can try, but you'll fail. Enter said with an easygoing smile as pulled out his laptop to look at the timer. Because the show isn't over just yet, go Busters. The main event is about to come real soon. He stated while confusing everyone watching the broadcast, as they didn't like where this was going. Main event? Don't tell. Nick said, realizing what he meant. Guy. Check the countdown on your morphin braces. He reminded them about the Megazord. The three Busters had forgotten about that and took a quick on their morphin braces to see how much time was left until the Megazord arrived, as their eyes widened in shock to see the remaining time they had left. Oh, no. It's less than 15 seconds remaining. Melissa cried in a panicked tone at how close it was before the Megazord appeared. This is bad. Midoriya shouted with great concern. We're almost out of time. Ren was the only one who didn't shout as he looked at the timer and felt anxiety rising in his gut. Well, will you look at that? Enter said, getting their attention on him again. The main event is about to begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He said, counting down to the timer on his laptop. And 0. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 9. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.